Good evening. Coming live to you from St. Augustine's, Coral Gables, another town hall. We've been doing these for a little while now, haven't we?
I know, I like it. Every Wednesday, I'm ready. I'm ready to roll.
We were having a good time before we went live here. A lot's going on. It's very exciting to be here at St. Augustine's. Tonight we have a great show. Lisa Cotter. Cotter? We'll ask her.
We're going to confirm.
C-O-T-T-E-R. Not sure. I think it's, if you say Cotter, isn't it C-A-T-T-R? You ask her. I'm not going to ask her.
Before we butcher her name more.
Yeah. Anyway, it's so great to have you. Why don't, Michelle, can you start us off with a prayer?
Yes, I'd love
Thanks.
to. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen.
Amen.
God our Father, we thank you for the gift of another parish town hall, that we can come together through live stream as a community. We just ask for open hearts and that you would lead and guide our discussion. We thank you for the speaker and the amazing work that you've done through her. May her words just penetrate our heart and inspire us to follow you more fully. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you. You know, I think her, what she's doing is very important. I think that, and in counseling and in confession with a lot of young women, men too, but I see very toxic relationships and courting and everything. So I'm curious that I want to talk to her about that aspect. I know she's going to talk to us a little bit more about discipleship, but I'd like to hear that angle of when women get trapped in toxic relationships and they want that Saint Joseph in their life. And anyway, we're going to talk to her. I'm very excited to see what she has to say about the feminine genius, you know, so.
She has a lot to, good things, relationship, femininity, excellence in living, like those are kind of her specialties. So I'm really excited to hear what she has to say.
Yeah, last night we had a meeting here for the Order of Malta, and we had a specialist come on, talk to us about the continuity of ethics and the language of John Paul II, Humanae Vitae, I mean not Humanae Vitae, Vitale, Evangelii Vitale, right? Well, I'm trying to plan, it's one of those senior moments. I'll look it up and I'll tell you in a minute.
Anything you said would have sounded great to me. I gotta be honest.
It sounds legit, right? It sounds legit? Okay. Anyway, so, you know, we're entering kind of a strange era. I don't know if you feel it, but I sense it with people that are coming into the office, people that are having appointments, even in confession. I don't know, it's just weird. Like, COVID is around still, but it's not. Are people still getting infected? And I think they are. And so supposedly in the news, the numbers are ticking up. And some people want to wear masks, other people don't. And we're entering like a very strange period. Like I was talking to somebody last night, they were saying that in North Florida, we don't even wear masks, you know.
Oh my gosh.
And they're not. No, it's like normal, everything back to normal. And so very bizarre.
It's weird. I mean, even with greeting people right now, it's like, hey, I haven't seen you in a couple months. Should I, like, do I touch you? Do I bow? Do we high five or elbow? It's
very
weird.
strange.
And then even like when, I don't know, going to Publix and stuff, like everyone has masks on and it's just like this weird, like, hey.
Well, let me tell you, I went to Shell Lumber. I'm going to do a little shout out to Shell Lumber. Go to Shell Lumber. I haven't been out much in these last 3 months since the whole coronavirus and the whole thing. I kind of just stayed here unless it's a nursing home or hospital, and just I want to kind of stay at the base. But I had to go to Shell Lumber, and people there like, hey, Father, how are you, Father? Can I help you? And I was like, man, this is a nice place. You don't get that at Home Depot. I don't want to throw Home Depot under the bus, but I was really impressed. But to your point, everybody with masks on, and it's a weird thing to see everybody with masks on, you know. But you know, one of the things I just want to say is, and maybe we'll do announcements towards the back of the show here, because we're going to bring Lisa on shortly. But I do want to say that I want to ask people about the 8 a.m. and noon mass, because we were live streaming both 8 a.m. noon mass, and some people on Sundays, and some people were saying, well, I don't know if there's a need for that, because we could just either we do the live 8 a.m. or we can watch it anytime during the day, I guess, when we get up. Because what happened was that the reason why we started the 8 a.m. is that people were saying that some people like to wake up early and watch the Mass. They don't want to wait till noon. It's kind of in the middle of the day. So I think that if we have the Mass in the morning, then kind of you could either watch it live or you can watch it any time during the day, or come to St. Augustine's. You know, we won't have reservations again for this weekend. I thought it went well. The only Mass that I think that was overpacked, and I was kind of worried because I thought I saw a lot of people, and some people not social distancing, but it was the noon Mass. The noon Mass was very full, but someone had suggested putting some chairs in the courtyard. Now that we have this tarp, I may do that.
We have a fancy tarp out.
We have
so
a fancy tarp. If you haven't been around, come visit Jesus at the Adoration Chapel. We have a nice fancy tarp that kind of blocks the sun there,
It's
gives
not a
shade.
tarp. It's a,
what is it?
that sounds
like,
ghetto.
okay,
it's
that
not
is
a tarp. It's a
a shade.
a shade
sail.
sail.
That's what it is.
Is that a real word? Okay, that sounds great.
Shade sail. Anyway, you want to tell us a little bit about Lisa, just a little bit before we bring her on, because we're going to be bringing her on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Lisa, I've heard her speak before. She's her and her family are kind of like a missionary family that have been very involved in Focus, which is the Fellowship of Catholic Students at the university. Focus is very well known for their missionary work, equipping and training not only young adults to be missionaries on campus, but also student leaders, and they have done an amazing work for our church. And so her family is just very involved with Focus, and they have 3 children, and she has kind of fallen into this call of being a speaker and author. So I'm sure she'll share a little bit about that. It wasn't necessarily her plan, but God really started using her in some beautiful and tremendous ways, especially on the topics of relationships, femininity, living with excellence and virtue. So she has a lot to share, and excited
You've
to
worked
see.
with young adults a long time. Why do you think this is important, especially today, for not just for young women, but specifically for young women? Why do you think?
Like all those topics?
Yeah.
Well, I think people are really confused about relationships, about masculinity, femininity, like who am I at my core, and also about like the role of virtue in daily life and Christian life. So I think those topics are many times not what you are necessarily formed in your own home. You know, usually I think it shows the lack of really like the human education that happens in families now. The formation's lacking. And so, you know, you go off to college and you've never really learned from mom and dad about maybe healthy relationships, whether it be friendships, but also, you know, of the opposite sex and
boundaries.
How to relate to them. And then also, especially for women, femininity is a very hot topic that our culture has taken and run with and given their opinion about. But the church has the most rich teachings about the beauty and truth and mission of women that are now just kind of getting attention.
Yeah, and it's not really something that the church is good about talking about, or the church is not good about talking about it. I know I haven't really talked about that subject, and I'm fascinated to talk to her about it. I mean, this whole, you know, like Marian disposition, and so important, yeah.
Yeah.
So
wonderful.
I think we're bringing Lisa on.
Yes, you are.
Hi, Lisa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Turn it around.
Good. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Can you see me okay?
We're gonna turn this around so we can kind of see you. We see ourselves. Let's see.
No, because her video.
Oh,
my
your
camera was
video's on.
off.
Oh, there it is. Okay, I was like,
That was my fault. Sorry.
I know, I was like, I'm gonna be talking to me.
It's us, you know. Let me tell you, Lisa, 9 out of 10, it's us.
I know, it's not.
It's not our guest, you know.
I've like gone into full Zoom mode, and so the idea of Skype is like, oh yeah, I have that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. How are you? How's everything?
I'm good. How are you?
You're in Colorado, right?
That's right. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. I have friends
Very
that, I have good friends of mine that know you. Jeff and Emily Runyon. Jeff works with Focus. I know your husband works for Focus.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yep.
I was speaking with them, and they said, please tell Lisa we say hello. So from Miami
that's
to back to Colorado, we say hello.
That is fantastic. So to give you an update, we were with Focus for 11 years, but we are not anymore. We recently
Oh,
transitioned
okay.
out. So yeah.
Oh,
Great,
excellent,
okay.
excellent.
Yes.
beautiful.
Still
And
in
Focus-
ministry.
Focus has been a big part of your story, of you and your
Yes.
family. So that's awesome
Oh, yeah.
to be able to take all that you've learned and step into a new ministry and opportunity to share that.
And did you meet your
Yeah.
husband on being with Focus?
I mean, it helped. We actually met in high school. So
Okay.
Okay.
yeah. predated.
They have a pretty good track record. A lot of these missionaries that go out with Focus, they kind of get together and then marry and have a life, just like Jeff and Emily.
Yeah.
They met on mission and get married now, 2 kids and hopefully more. So it's
Yep.
a great thing. Great thing.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Father, before we start, can you pronounce your name for me?
This is funny. This is going to be funny because before you came on, we were wanting to see how you pronounce your name.
That shows you. We're Colorado to Miami. Which
Colorado, Miami.
is
Yeah, so my last name is Vigoa, like you got to Goa somewhere.
Okay.
And so
Vigoa.
how do you pronounce your name?
Cotter.
Cotter.
It's Irish. Yeah.
Cotter.
See, I told you I was right.
Yeah, Michelle was right. I thought you needed like an A in there or something.
Where's the A? I'm like, I don't. It's not there.
Yeah. I do get like Carter or Cotter. Yeah, there's definite. I mean, every name. So is Vigoa, is that like a total, sorry, could you hear that out of curiosity?
No.
Okay, good. It was a phone call.
No, we can.
I'm going to
hear
put my
you
phone
perfectly.
into airplane mode here.
Yeah,
Okay.
so my family's Cuban. My family on the Vigoa side, they were from Spain. So they moved from Spain to Cuba. So that's where the name comes from, the area of Galicia, which is northern Spain, closer to Portugal.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I love Spain. Spain's awesome.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, listen,
Yeah.
we're so excited to have you on and to talk a little bit about your mission now and what you're going around and speaking about. I love your website and your Made to Magnify, which
beautiful.
is very beautiful. And I was reading a little bit about how that just came to you, but we want to just give the floor to you and share with us a little bit about you and your family and how did this all come about?
Yes. How did it all come about? Well, I mean, the Catholic speaker thing, how that all came about, that was never my original plan.
No.
My plan was I was going to get married. We got married straight out of college. So I was going to get married and then have kids and be a mom. And like, that was the plan. But we joined Focus, which was incredible. 11 years, loved our time at Focus. So great. But in the early years of Focus, when they had their conferences, they needed speakers to fill in the breakout sessions. And so they didn't have a huge budget, so they would pull from the staff. So they said, all right, who wants to volunteer to give a talk at the conference? So I volunteered one year and gave a talk to all the men. It was called Why Do Women Do That? And anytime a female talks to guys about why girls do what they do or how they work, they're just grateful, right?
Yeah,
So the talk went well because how could it not? It's me talking to a bunch of guys who are clueless and need help. And at the time, Lighthouse Catholic Media was kind of building up their CD collection and they needed content quick. And so they said, hey, Focus, can we have some of the talks from Seek and turn them into CDs? So they got my talk, turned it into a CD, and then it's sitting in the back of these churches. And I start getting phone calls, people saying, hey, can you come talk to our youth group? Can you come talk to our men's group? Can you come talk to whatever? And I was thinking, well, I mean, I don't really do that, but I mean, I guess I could come. They're like, do you have a contract?
So that's how it started? Wow.
That's how it all started. Yeah. Yeah. Just kind of, and there were little steps along the way as well. I used to work for the Augustine Institute when it founded, when the Augustine Institute, are you familiar with the Augustine Institute?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So when they founded the Augustine Institute, I was the only full-time employee when the doors opened. And I was doing just all the admin stuff for the grad school. And so then later when they started to have their video side to it, Why Disciple and things like that, they called me up just because they knew me, they knew my theology, they knew my character, all that stuff, and asked me, can you come in and film some things? And again, I'm like, I don't do that. What do you expect me to do? So they kind of taught me how to do that. And then I ended up, because I'm local, in a lot of these videos with them. So, I mean, things like that just kind of kept happening. I mean, honestly, it was the Lord. It's completely the Lord. I'm sure there are people who could do this so much better than I do. But for whatever reason, he thought that I was supposed to not just be a mom, but also do some cool ministry stuff on the side. So that's what I do.
That is very cool. And your Catholic life, where did that start? Have you cradle Catholic and this excitement to go out and preach and teach and be on the ministry circuit? Is that, where does that come from?
Yeah. So I was raised Catholic, born into a Catholic family.
Yeah.
My parents are wonderful. My My mom taught at our Catholic school. I went through Catholic school, kindergarten, all the way through grad school. I've never stepped a foot into public school. And, we did a lot of the things you were supposed to do, but I wouldn't say that my parents were like on fire Catholics,
Right.
They did it because that's what you're supposed to do. We went to mass every Sunday, and they do love the Lord. But really, it was in college that I would say that actually the end of my senior year, really, that my faith started to kind of come alive through some different retreat experiences and mission trips. And then in college, I went to Benedictine College, which was just a phenomenal experience, got a degree in religious studies and youth ministry, and just really went all in. I think community was probably the biggest thing, just that community that I experienced at Benedictine. All of my friends, we were all running towards that same goal together. Wanted to live the good life together. We're pushing each other to do that. And then straight out of college, got married, went to the Augustine Institute for my husband. He got his master's, and then we joined Focus, and just have never really strayed from that path.
Wow, that's excellent.
That's beautiful. You definitely have a good missionary heart, and that experience has prepared you to be this speaker now and this author. So it's really cool to see God's plan, kind of the full picture coming through. That's awesome. And you have a particular passion for different topics and relationships and femininity and just excellence in living. Where did that start and that vision to talk about those certain things that our culture really needs right now?
Yeah. Again, it's just all the Lord. It's so funny to me because none of these things that I do with my life were ever my original plan. But with Focus, so I had given a couple of breakouts for them over, from 2010 to 2012. And they wanted to do something at their conferences where they were going to break up the men and the women. And they said, Lisa, can you give a talk on authentic femininity? I was like, what? No, I don't know. And then I prayed about it and I was like, okay, well, I can study on it. I can figure it out. I will. So in 2013, I gave a talk to all the women at the Seek Conference on just authentic femininity. What does it mean to be a woman? And through my being forced to study the topic and really read what does Pope St. John Paul II have to say about it? Where are the roots of this in Genesis? What does Edith Stein have to say about it? All of these things really sparked just a love and a passion for me to impart to women the gift of their femininity, the beauty of their feminine genius. These things that I didn't really hear growing up in the 90s, growing up in the late 80s and 90s, where I was told, to be a woman, it means you assert yourself like a man. And I remember not liking pink because that's just not what you did during the grunge 90s period. You just didn't want to be girly, and femininity isn't equated with being girly, but I just didn't understand the gift of my femininity or how integral that was to who I am as a person and the beauty of that. And so just studying it really brought a passion to my heart, and hearing women approach me and talk to me about their own struggles with what does it mean to be a woman in our world today at this time. And it just kind of grew from there into this topic that I speak about frequently, which was, again, not my plan.
And what is it? Can you delve into that for someone who doesn't know that language? And Michelle and I have talked about this before, where you could tell when someone is entering into discipleship and when they're really serious about growing in holiness, a language begins to emerge. And you can see it on the circuit when you're out talking. But what does it mean when you say that? And after studying some of the documents and what the church teaching is, but could you kind of for a person who's a lay person who's listening for this language for the first time, and they may not be their part of their vocabulary, but what does that mean? The feminine genius, femininity. Femininity. If you could say it.
A lot of syllables.
Don't worry.
Did you practice?
I
Thanks,
did.
Michelle. Michelle always has my back, So what does it mean? How do you teach someone or explain to someone who has no clue about what that language is?
Yeah. Okay. So, I could talk for hours on this, mind you.
Well, we don't have hours.
I know we don't have that much time. But if I were to break it down simply, feminine genius, right? Most Catholics might have never heard that term before. It's the idea, though, that God created us as men and women for a reason and for a purpose. And there's beauty in that. So the fact that there are two genders, which even that I understand in our society today, is really questioned. It's well, does gender have purpose? Does it have meaning? Why does that even matter? But right from the beginning in Genesis, we hear when the Lord creates them, right? He created them male and female. He created them, right? So God didn't have to do that, right? Like he could have just created one being that was, non-gendered and somehow reproduced on its own. Who knows, right? He could have done whatever he wanted, but he wanted these two genders that complement each other. And so there's this real gift in the fact that God created men with certain gifts, certain talents, certain strengths, and he created women with certain gifts and talents and strengths. Now, this isn't to say that we're like boxed into these like, well, to be a woman means this and it has to fit in this tight box, or to be a man, it means this and it has to fit in this tight box. And if you don't, then there's something wrong with you. That's not at all what that means. But what it means is that there's something unique about each gender that is brought into the world. And John Paul II called this uniqueness that women have the feminine genius. So he wanted women to realize, because he was writing about this in the 80s and 90s when little Lisa was being told, like, oh, assert yourself like a man, become like a man. That's how you get ahead. He was seeing this. He was saying, no, like women, what you bring to this world is so unique and so special and so important that if you don't live from that gift, then we're going to lose a piece of our humanity. We're going to lose a piece of what God created and knows is vital to this world. That's what JP2 called it, vital. He said the feminine genius was vitally essential to both church and society. And so he sees these unique gifts that women have that really center around this idea that we as women, we see people with our heart. We see them through the lens of our heart, and our relationships, like everything we do and the way that we interact with the world and with others is all focused on people. It's focused on relationships. So we all have this gift of femininity that's deeply maternal. It's like, even if you're not a physical mother, all women are called to mother in this world. That's a beautiful thing, right? And so we have this gift to be able to see people with our hearts, and we need to not shut that down or not think that, well, we just need to become more like men, but to like recognize, no, there's a beauty in that and live from that. And that's kind of like the easiest way I can maybe try to explain it. Like,
but what is
in a quick?
My question as a man is to ask you, when a woman is teaching her daughter, and what you're saying is beautiful and right on, and I think, but there's people that will challenge you and say, but that's not what feminism is, where it's more of, you need to be equal to a man, you're just like a man, you could do what a man does, there's no limits to you. Do you see the difference between feminism and, can you talk a little bit about what the two differences are, and the gift of how God created you as a woman, and that it's not to say it discredits you from, all that you can do, yes, but it's a little different, right, from feminism.
Yes, like the difference between like the feminine genius and then like the feminist movement. Is that what you're meaning?
Right,
like,
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, one thing I should point out that you said yourself that's important is that the men and women are equal in their dignity and their worth and their value. It's not. I think that's super important. Yeah, because I've had women approach me and say, I was raised my whole life being told that I was inferior to the men in my life. I'm like, oh no, that's not true. Like, we are equal in our worth, our value, and our dignity. But there's this compatibility. So that is a hotly debated question, right?
Right, exactly.
Like, how do you differentiate between like feminism, this movement that can be very anti-men, right, that can be very anti-motherhood, saying like, well, my femininity, which they equate to like the fact that I can have children, is actually something that holds me back. And so I need to actually get rid of that, because that's what's preventing me from being able to move forward. The fact that, if I'm going to have children, that's going to hold me back. Or if I have to mother physically, like, that's going to hold me back. And so what JP2 is saying is not that men and women aren't equal, because they absolutely are, but he's saying that we need to respect the fact that unique call in their... Oh, can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. It sounded a little bit...
Oh, the speakers are muted, it says. Sorry. I don't know what happened there. Now I can't hear you. Give me a minute. Speakers muted. I didn't touch anything. Isn't technology fun?
Good. Yeah, we're still good.
We can hear you.
Can you hear us? Maybe she can't hear us. Can you hear us?
Oh, no.
I don't think she can hear us, maybe. It's not us, it's her.
We told her before it was always us. Oh, dang it. That's so
I don't
funny.
think it's
Maybe
us.
we can reconnect.
I don't think she can hear us, though. Let's see. Just when she's getting
I
good,
know,
too.
it was like right on
getting
the
into
spot.
it here.
Oh, you can still hear me. Okay, that's awesome. Just a
Can you
second.
hear
I'm trying to
us?
figure out what happened.
Yeah.
Maybe we should disconnect and reconnect or something. But what she was talking about, your question was very good, and where she's going to head is going to be very beautiful because it's distinguishing
But
between.
I
Okay,
get this
sounds
all
good.
the time. I get this all the time. You know,
Yeah.
and there's something tied to also to pro-life. I mean, pro-choice and this desiring to take back what was taken from them. But you know, I like what she's saying is that there's this if you understand your dignity and where you came from, and that then there's no need to reclaim what you already have.
Right.
You know.
And I think I've always, in kind of praying and diving in this topic when I was in college and continuing now, I think the big difference is our church is calling for a new feminism. Like what the world says is feminism is not truly feminism because it's not taking the gifts of women and protecting them and allowing the world and society to support them to be able to be as fruitful as they can be. It's usually taking the gifts of women and being like, see, that's what brings you down. Instead of being like, no, these are gifts that make you different from man that should be celebrated and brought to the world and brought to society. So.
I don't know, Lisa. Can you hear
Are
us?
you back?
Yeah, I
We were having
can.
our
Yes, when you were
conversation
doing. That's exactly where I was
because we were-
headed. That's perfect.
Yeah, we were telling Michelle and I were saying that you were getting to the juicy part.
I know. And the devil was like, "Don't say it."
Yeah, don't say it. We're gonna break this down.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, but yeah, no, Michelle, exactly what you were saying, right? There's this idea of the new feminine. It's like, no, we shouldn't reject the femininity of women. We need to recognize it. They have different needs. And so we need to, so JP2 is always like, women, we actually need you in all spheres of society. But we also have to respect the fact that you have different and unique needs. And so that might mean that in the workplace, we need to make sure that if a woman's going to have a baby, that we support that. And we make sure that she can get that time off that she needs, that she can be able to nurse her baby if that's what she chooses, that maybe she can do some of her work from home or part-time. I mean, there's all these different ways. JP2 is like, we need to be more creative because we need the voice of women in all spheres of society, because we just have one half of the population, one piece of the two genders speaking into all the ideas or into, different decisions that are being made. Well, then you're missing the voice of women who see people with their hearts. You're missing women who are going to say, listen, that's not going to serve the needs of these people because it's going to disconnect them from this community, or they're not going to be able to get those resources they need, right? There's so many ways that women have a gift of being able to think about people and how do we care for people. There's an intuition that women have that JP2 talks about. That's just beautiful. And if we're going to miss that, then we're going to miss a piece of what makes us fully human. And so yes, the new feminism isn't denying that there has been some what's the right word? Disparity maybe, like between men and women, right? That women haven't always been supported in the way that they need to be supported to be able to do the things that are most important if God is calling them to be a wife or a mother, and to care for those in their lives without I just lost my train of thought.
Well, I wanted to ask you, because I find this very fascinating, but what do you say when there's people that charge that the church doesn't have enough women in leadership, or that women's voices are not heard or kind of taken into consideration? So what do you say to that? A woman who's in the Catholic world, works with a lot of Catholic men. I'm sure you work there with the Archdiocese of Denver. And so what do you say to people who say, yeah, you know what, women don't have a voice? All this sounds beautiful, but the Catholic Church is stuck in the Middle Ages.
Yeah. Honestly, that always baffles me, because I have the gift of getting to travel and to see the church in different parts of the world and in the country. And everywhere I go, like, the bishops that I meet, the priests that I talk to, they're nothing but supportive.
Right.
Like they're so amazing. They're like, what a gift it is to have you here. Thank you for bringing your voice to the table. Thank you for being a part of this. And honestly, I have, priest and bishop asking me, like, how can I better serve? Like, to me, it just baffles. It just baffles me. I don't, from my personal experience,
Right.
I don't experience this, like, you don't belong here, like, this is the man's dominion and world. And I don't know. I personally, it baffles me.
Yeah, and that's what I see too. I think, and that's how we live here at St. Augustine's, and it's how I've always seen it in ministry. But there is that. I see that. I'm sure you've seen it too, where people question that.
And I think it's a judgment from the outside, where you attend a mass and you're like, there's a bunch of men up there.
Right.
Like, it's a very off judgment, and it's without any further study and looking at the reality of the church.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's definitely maybe things that need to grow, and women being able to have a voice that's heard in different places and for different situations. But I would agree where, my experience has been, like, the church knows that women need to be a part of everything, and like that our voice is complementary to men. It's not something that's in competition with, but it's complementary, and that's the gift that we both need to bring.
Oh, let me tell you, if it wasn't for women, the church would have been, I mean, I don't know where we would be today, because really, truly, women run the church, and I've seen it millions of times, but yeah. So.
Lisa, what would be some of your recommendations for, if this topic is something new for people, maybe some books or articles or things that people can kind of dive into to understand John Paul II's writings, and other things that the church has put forward to show the beauty and support of the mission of women in the world?
Yeah, I think you start with the letter to women that he wrote. That was in 1994. Every Catholic woman should read that. It's short. It's a letter. Like, it really is. It's just a letter. And it really gets to the heart of what JP2 feels and thinks about women. So I think you start there. And if you read that and you're like, ooh, I want more, Mulieris Dignitatem would be the next one, which was written in 1988. That is a much longer document, but it really speaks to a lot of the issues that were going on in the church then and that are still going on now, with the gender complementarity, and how do we understand this, and how do we live from this, and how do we make sure that men's masculine genius comes out too, because there's a complementary masculine genius, although JP2 didn't flesh that out like he did the feminine genius. So I would start there. One of my favorite books, it's actually sitting on my desk, and it's not sitting here because of this interview, it's sitting here because it's always sitting here, there's a book, it's Pope John Paul II Speaks on Women. And this just compiles all of the times that he spoke about women. There was kind of an unofficial season in his papacy during the late 80s and 90s where he spoke a lot about Mary, he spoke a lot about the dignity of woman, and all of that's compiled in here, and that's a beautiful resource. Then if you're really crazy, next you go to Edith Stein. She's a little harder to read. St. Teresa Benedicta of the Cross would be her other name, also known as. But a lot of what JP2, his writings, you see her works reflected in the way he speaks, which is really cool because it shows that the church is listening to women. And, JP2 loved Edith Stein. He canonized her. And her work, she has these essays on woman, are just a beautiful background that he uses for his own writings on women.
Awesome. Thank you. And I wanted to ask you, because I know you have a particular book that you have co-authored with your husband, right? Dating Detox.
I do, yeah.
Would you share
That's right.
of where that kind of was inspired by or from, and what it's about?
Yeah, it's funny. As I'm talking, I'm like, everything comes back to focus somehow. But we, after giving that talk in 2013 on authentic femininity, I was home and just praying for those women. I guess this was 2015. I did it 2 years in a row. Just praying for the women who had been at the conference, because, so many of us have done these conferences, these events, retreats, all kinds of, those like fire you up events. And we go home and we're like, okay, I'm going to change everything. Like, my whole life is going to be different now. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, you kind of start to fall off the bandwagon. The spiritual high starts to diminish. And then several weeks later, like, life can really go back to normal if you're not intentional about it. And so I remember I was home and I was praying for all those who had been at the conference. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, I know where they're at. I know they're at that spot now where it's going to get really hard. And that decision to like, do I live the life I know I should live, or do I live the life that I've been living that's more comfortable? Like which way am I going to go? And I remember thinking there should be a book for these students that helps you get through that transition of like, okay, I know my worth, I know my value, I know my dignity, I know what I'm made for, but I don't know how I'm supposed to make this transition. I don't know how I'm supposed to get there. And so working with college students, the biggest hang up that I always saw, the biggest thing that always held them back was the issue of chastity. It was always like, we call it the gateway virtue, because it's like, if you can get chastity, like, so it's like a snowball. Oh, so many other things start to line up, especially for the college students, right? Like when they realize I want to live chastely, they realize I probably can't get drunk. Like that's not helping me live chastely, right? And so there's this, like, we call this like a virtue snowball that starts rolling once you get chastity down. And so we wrote Dating Detox as this 40-day process book. So it's 40 days that you're walking through. Every day you're reading one chapter, and there's a concrete challenge that you do to help you build that virtue of chastity. And so it's this step-by-step thing that takes you from wanting it to living it, as I always like to say.
What age group is that? Like, are you targeting? Is that young adult or high school? What is that?
Yeah, I think like a more mature or a more experienced sophomore in high school, all the way through any young adult, any single young adult. I've done the study with 20 and 30-year-olds in my house, and they got a ton out of it. And I've gotten on Skype and talked with high school youth groups that are doing the study together, and they've gotten a ton out of it. So we tried to make it broad enough, but it is a little more of a mature audience. I spent 5 weeks interviewing focused missionaries about their experiences and how they went from wanting it to living it, and just sat and listened in these interviews for hours and hours and hours and took notes. And that's really the heart of the book, are their stories, concrete stories of how people did it, how they went from living in this hookup culture, really just saturated in the lies of the culture that say like, listen, you were just made for pleasure. You were made for fun. Dating and relationships, all that is just about, yourself. And then made that shift to actually like, I want to be free to love and be loved, which means that I can't just die. I can't just like live for my passions. I actually need to master them in a way that I'm free so I can actually love and be loved. And so that's really like the heart of the book. So there is some really little more mature topics in the book because of that. We didn't leave any area untouched. We really wanted to address anything that might be preventing someone from getting there. And so that's why I say it's definitely not junior high, not a sheltered freshman. But I do love it when high schoolers read it later in like junior, senior year, because I want them to read it before they need it. I want them to read it so they don't need the book. And so they can see real life experiences of what this is like. So they can see and listen to people say, yeah, hooking up, not all that it's, put out to be. Like it's actually really gut wrenching. It's really agonizing. That aftermath of it is actually really difficult to get through, and to be able to see that before they make those mistakes.
And what do you think is, because you're saying you interviewed all these people, what's a common denominator? What are the pitfalls, or what would you say, like, this is where you need to start? Like, what would your message be to our young adults here, our women who are listening to you, that maybe say, look, this is where you need to start? Of course, buy your book, I think it would be great, but what is something like a common denominator? Say, if people that can kind of find this or start here, or what would you suggest? In talking to, what's the common theme that comes up with a lot of people, like where they're at and how they've gotten to this place where they don't feel loved? And a couple of weeks ago, we were talking with Chris Stefanik about believing the negative I ams. And so how do you see people falling into these pitfalls where they can't get out of? And then, sin is a slippery slope. And so it's like, well, I'm already sinning anyway, so why be chaste? Or, so what do you think in your experience? What would you say?
Yeah, I think first step is community. I think community is absolutely huge. Yeah, thinking you can do it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Having that accountability group, or that at least one person who you say, listen, I want to make this change in my life, and I need you to hold me accountable to that. I need you to be asking me how it's going. I need you to be checking in with me. I need your support. I need your prayers. Because if you try to do it by yourself, just like anything, it's going to be like it's just asking to fail without some kind of support.
Well, I think that's somebody could be listening to you and it's kind of new what you're saying. How does that happen? How do they build community? You know, how do they do that for someone who's alone, or how do they reach out, you know?
Yeah, it takes some courage. It takes some intentionality. You can't just sit around and wait and expect like, oh, all of a sudden I'm just going to have these people fall out of the sky. You have to really be intentional about it. So I think first steps is showing up at church events, not just on Sunday, but showing up to any of those community events, which I know is really hard right now because there's not a lot of them. But if there are small groups, I don't know what all your parish offers, but if there's small group studies going on or communities that you can enter into, or young adult or youth ministry groups, anything like that, showing up where those people are, or reaching out to, I would hope that most of us know in our lives, maybe one or two at minimum, people who you go, they seem to have a lot of peace. They seem to have a lot of joy. Their life isn't perfect, but they've got something that I want. And reaching out to them and saying, hey, where does that come from? And do you have any friends, or do you have a community that I could start to hang out with, that I could come and be a part of? And just being bold. And I know it takes some courage, right, to ask and to say that. But to ask, is there someplace that I could fit in, or even just showing up at your own parish and saying, hey, Father.
I think that's powerful. What you're saying, and it sounds so simple, and like, yeah, everybody knows this. But I think when it's coming from you, and Michelle, I know, talks a lot about this, we can't stress it enough, where community is so important. You want to be successful in holiness, you want to be growing in faith, you want to be a disciple of Jesus. You need a group that's going to hold you accountable and say, look, let's talk about this. You're struggling, let's talk about it. I'm going to hold you accountable. Because a lot of people want to do it alone, they can't. They say, well, this is too hard for me. I can't do it. So it's unattainable. So thank you for that. I think that is so important. And I was telling Michelle before we came on, and through confession and some counseling, I see a lot of hurt and a lot of wounds that need to be addressed. And because of this, they're making wrong choices and falling into a lot of difficulties. And so to hear something like this, and maybe have a book that really shows you a path and say, look, let's start talking, let's start from here, and let's move forward. And show different people having the same kind of struggles but are able to achieve greatness. I think that's very good.
Yeah, we had some of our young adults that went through that book together. I think it was about a year and a half ago or something like that. And they really enjoyed it and thought it was amazing. And I especially think to build like authentic community, it's a great resource to help people journey a little deeper into some of their own stuff. To be able to be free to offer authentic relationships to people. Because I think that's, part of the dating detox is kind of trying to get out of the habit of seeking someone and be able to be okay with who you are, and God being the one that satisfies, and then being free and in a healthy place to offer friendships and freedom. Because that's a very hard topic and I think situation that a lot of young adults are in.
And I want to promote your site. You're madetomagnify.com. Is it .com?
Yep.
Okay, so I encourage you, if you're listening tonight and you like what Lisa's saying, because right now, if you're in that age group, this is it. You want to grow in holiness. You want to start to get on the right foot and make a difference. Start to go madetomagnify.com. And I really like this book. So
it's excellent. And Lisa, could you share a little bit? I know you're involved in a upcoming virtual conference, the Lux Summit. Would you share a little bit of just an invitation to that conference, a little bit about what it is and what the hope was and inspiration for it? Yes.
So the Lux Summit is being put on by Leah Darrow. It's sponsored by Lux, which is kind of a larger brand that Leah and I founded a couple of years ago with a live conference. But the Lux Summit, to be clear, has been Leah's baby. I'm like, you go for it. I don't know how you're pulling this off during quarantine with everybody home. But I am going to be speaking at the event. And so the idea behind Lux in general was just really wanting to create a place for Catholic women, young adult women in particular, to be able to gather and to be able to create community, to be able to learn together. And so Leah has this amazing app. It's the Lux app that you can join and be a part of. And with everything that's going on with COVID, we were supposed to have a live conference actually in Florida. We were supposed to have it back in March, and it had to be canceled because, that's what happened. So Leah said, but I still want to do something. I still want to have a way for the women to gather. And there's been a lot of these conferences popping up. I'm sure you've seen them, right? There's been one on marriage and the Eucharist and theology of the body and dating and all of this. And Leah said, well, where's the one for the ladies? Like, we need one that's just for us ladies. And so she pulled it together. And she's got a little bit of some unique pieces to this conference is that there's two types of talks. There's live keynotes that are going on pretty much all day, starting Friday night, all day Saturday and into Sunday. And then there's a whole section of breakout sessions that you can also jump and listen to that are more topical, that maybe, you want to study or learn about something more intensely, or you want to dive into a topic more deeply. And so all of this is going to be going on. So every speaker that's live, I think there's about 12 of us that are live. Every one of us, after our talk, we're going to hang around and we're going to answer questions, and we're going to be available for a conversation about whatever that topic is that we've spoken on. And she's just done a phenomenal job of grabbing women from all different demographics, different ages, different backgrounds, and just saying, let's have a conversation about where we're at in the world right now, where you're at. I mean, this whole season has changed all of us. And she just wanted to have a way for us to gather, because that's not going to be happening in any capacity for who knows how long. And so she said, why wait? Let's just do it now.
And anyone can join? Is it free sign up, or what do you have to do to be on the summit?
Yes. So this is one of the few where it is a paid ticket to come to be able to join in on this conference. And the beautiful thing about this that I really appreciate about Leah is that, and this isn't, we're all going to be fine, right? But for us Catholic speakers, our entire income for the year has just completely, and for who knows how long, has just completely disappeared. And so Leah really wanted to honor those of us who are speaking. And so there is a fee to be a part of the conference, because we as speakers, I've done, I think, 3 or 4 of these conferences, and this is the first one where I'm receiving some kind of compensation for it. And so Leah, just knowing, that all of us are kind of in this same boat, said, we're going to ask that everybody give a little bit so that we can, as a way of then supporting those of us who are in this situation. And she just really also felt like what she was offering with the lives and with the Q&A and all that kind of stuff was just unique. And so, yeah, there is a ticket price for it, but I think it's well worth it.
What is your take on something like this, different than like Rachel Hollis, or because a lot of our Catholic girls are attracted to that? What is your take on that? A Christian speaker,
Yeah.
But
Rachel.
Yeah.
Yes, she does. She does. I actually have a lot of thoughts on that. I think that the biggest challenge for some of those kind of, there's 2 ways you can kind of look at it. There's like the self-help,
Right.
how am I going to get ahead? And Rachel is a huge cheerleader for achieve your dreams. You can
Right,
do it. You
right.
go, girl. Right.
Girl power.
Girl power. Yes, absolutely. But interestingly, I think the piece that she leaves out is Jesus,
Right.
even though she says she's a Christian, which, I'm not going to judge her on that at all. I don't know her personally. But I think there's this idea of achieving your dreams is something you have to do. Right. And it's all about you, and you're the one who's going to figure it out. And you just got to believe in yourself. Right. And that's how you're going to get through it. And if you think about it, Mother Teresa would never say, if someone said, well, Mother Teresa, how do you do what you do? How do you serve the poor in Calcutta and all the amazing things that you've done for our world? She would never say, I just believed in myself.
Or
that's almost ridiculous.
I made it happen. I got the resources, and we got these people. When I got all these nuns out here, we're making it happen. Yeah, you're right. She would never say that.
No, she would never say. What she said is, I'm a pencil in the hand of God.
Right.
She says he does the writing. He's the one who brings it all about. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of this. It's a whole genre. It's not just Rachel Hollis, but there's this whole world that's just you can be whatever you want to be. You can achieve your dreams. And there is something to the fact that if you are who you were meant to be, you'll set the world on fire, right? Catherine of Siena, right?
That's
Or
right.
Saint Irenaeus, who says that, what is this? The glory of God is man fully alive, right? Like there's something to that. Like, yes, we should be fully alive in our lives, but when we try to do it all on our own, or when we think that this is the only way that we're going to find happiness or peace in life is what we've got in our minds, we miss God's will. Like God might be like, I know you're working really hard to achieve that dream, but that's not what's going to make you happy. And you're not listening to me. You're not letting me speak into this right now. And he's, maybe he's got this whole different plan, but we're so focused on like, well, but Rachel Hollis told me that I can be and dream and achieve whatever I want.
Yeah, and there's a danger, and I think the popes have written about a dictatorship of relativism, that it's all strewed in through there, sewn into that kind of mentality. So you're absolutely right. Well, I'm super excited for this summit, although I'll see it through Michelle. I'm not gonna watch.
I'll give you notes. I'll give you notes.
You'll give me the footnotes, But Lisa, thank you for coming on today, for giving us a taste of something that is so important. I know when I was doing the research on you and just reading up a little bit, and really opened my eyes to something that is, I have to confess, I haven't given attention to, and it's so important. It's, for me, working with Michelle, working with a lot of the women that work here, it's kind of like second nature, but there is something to it where you're bringing to the forefront a very important aspect of who we are. We're individuals, we're all created in the dignity of God, but we have our worth, and we all bring something to the table that's different, And so, I don't know. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your yes to allow the Lord to use you in such beautiful ways. That was different from your original plan. I think it's an awesome witness to just what we just talked about, letting God be be God.
Exactly. Oh, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you, and keep spreading the good news.
God willing, I will.
All right.
Thanks,
you.
Lisa.
Take care. God bless.
God bless.
So, I think that for me, you're down with this, like this backwards and forwards. I don't know this enough, and I got to do my homework on it, because I from listening to her and doing some of the research that I did before, it's fascinating, and I think it's something that young girls, we need to start this with the younger girls.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Empowering
I would say
them in the name of Jesus Christ.
Younger all the way to much older, because I think there's there's both, right? Like there's the younger girls in their formation. But then also I've talked to many women that
who've never heard this.
Who've never heard this.
Yeah.
And so they're much older, and they've always had this feeling that the church doesn't necessarily support women, that I gotta be quiet, and that I don't have a place.
You're absolutely right.
So it's kind of there's much work to be done, I think, for all ages. But it will bring liberation and freedom, and also an empowerment of the beauty and gifts of a woman.
Yeah, and it's so important, so important. Well, that's a great speaker tonight. I'd like to, you said that they did the detox book already here?
Yeah, but
The young
it'll
adult.
be something I'm sure we'll do again, especially when we all get back together.
I think that was great. Anyway, just a couple things, because we're going to be running out of time soon. But just a reminder, I think I mentioned at the beginning, we're only going to be live streaming the 8 a.m. Mass now, starting on Sundays. So feel free, watch it whenever you want. But subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe and give a thumbs up, right? Give a thumbs up. I just learned that today. Somebody said, you got to remind them to give them a thumbs up. So, hey, thumbs up. So give us a thumbs up, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. As I mentioned last week, we sent a text out to all the adorers for the Adoration Chapel. We have a nice shade sale.
I was waiting.
You're waiting for me to say tarp. We have a nice shade sale that gives a nice shade so you can be there. It's still a little warm, but the Adoration Chapel's open. It's beautiful. The Lord is exposed. Come by. If you're assigned to a time, come on by. We're open. We need people to be there every hour to adore Jesus, so he's never alone.
And that's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah, 7
right?
a.m. to 7 p.m. You have some updates too that you want to give?
I do. Just a reminder that the Father's Day Novena, to give the gift of prayer to your father, will be open until Friday afternoon. So if you're hoping to include your father, whether living or deceased, in that novena of masses, please do so online by Friday of this week.
Perfect. And then anything else? Oh, our food drive. Can you talk to us about a little bit of food
Yes.
drive?
So I think a month ago we did a
Which was
Saturday
so successful. So
food
successful.
drive. You don't even have to get out of your car. You can just pop your trunk. And on July 18th, that's a Saturday, probably at the same time, 10 a.m. to 1, we'll have an opportunity to be collecting food drive for our pantry here, as well as Camille's House and Missionaries of Charity Sisters. So more info to come. We will have a food drive coming up on July 18th.
And we're getting a lot of response from that. We're getting, we're having girls from Our Lady of Lourdes. We're getting guys from Columbus doing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So
And actually
that's
today,
excellent.
someone dropped off 500 sandwiches.
500
Did you hear that?
sandwiches.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
So
which
whoever
is-
you are, good job. That's
Yeah, they've been doing it
that's like a
weekly,
hard work.
but today they were like 500 sandwiches, which was amazing. Just wrapping up here. Bless His Kitchen tomorrow, lunch with my pastor. Pam Gigante is gonna have lunch with me. She comes to Mass here at the noon Mass frequently, and I want to talk to her. She's a friend of mine, to see what she's up to and how the world of journalism as a Catholic and how that plays out. So join me tomorrow, 1 o'clock live with Pam Gigante. I'm gonna give more information, but July 10th, start marking your calendars. It's a Friday night. We're going to have a prayer service in the parking lot. We're gonna do something big, something beautiful, invite different priests from the Archdiocese of Miami in different languages and do some prayers. So we're gonna do that. See, anything else, Michelle?
I did have something to mention. I wanted to extend a great and warm thank you to everyone that has been just generous supporting us as we raise money in honor of Piera Marie, our baby that passed away. Thank you for just the generosity that I've seen. People have donated online so that
Do you feel the love?
I feel the love, like
Good.
overwhelmingly. I'm
Good,
so
good.
humbled.
So you
just
can
thank
still
you.
donate. Go to the website. There's a little banner there. I want to make this huge. So if you haven't donated to Pietra Marie's cause with Blue Missions, do it, because I want to do something on a tank with her name or do something beautiful. But I'm
awesome.
glad people are responding.
Yeah, super are. In the
And you
comments
guys are doing
and stuff,
well?
We're doing very good. So
Yeah.
God's been really good to us. And
Yeah, I believe that.
yeah.
So that is our show tonight, and I just want to say how grateful I am to work here at St. Augustine and to be part of this beautiful team. And I just encourage you to buckle down and do the hard work and get closer to Christ. Say your prayers, come to Mass or watch this live stream. Stay connected to your parish. We need to build this community, and I can't stress that enough. So stay connected to your parish, stay connected to Christ, and please be safe. And we'll see you next week. God bless. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks.
Good job.
Good job. Praise God.
Awesome.
So good.